Mute us. And hello, everyone. Just making sure our faces do fit in frame and everything's okay. Can you let us know if the audio is working? We have done a quick test, but you never know. However, it is over YouTube.
Yeah.
Also,
do you hear us?
Yeah, you're quite loud, actually. I might knock you down a tiny bit.
Okay.
We'll have people let us know, but yeah, because when you did that setting earlier, that improved the quality. It also made the volume go a lot louder.
Right. I can stay away from the microphone, and maybe that's a better.
Maybe. All right, we've got some
better volume.
We've got one yes. I don't know what the delay is. I think someone told me it was like 20 seconds. So that's fine, because when we're answering questions, we'll take longer than 20 seconds to answer a question. So we won't have problems with all that. All right, Ciro's loud. Yeah, I've knocked you down a little bit. And people saying the audio's all good. So
okay,
I think we can start. It is 7 o'clock, or my 7 o'clock. So yeah, welcome to this stream. I think this is number 5. I've not been keeping count too much, but I think it is number 5. And today we have Ciro. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Ciro Continisio, and I work for Unity. I used to be a game developer before, made a couple of games, and then 4 years ago, I joined Unity as what we used to call evangelists. Now we don't say that word anymore. Now we're creator advocates.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I do at Unity now. I lead the team, a team of 2, Shema and Amel. You might have seen them yesterday as well in the live stream that we did on the Unity channel. And we used to travel a lot. That was like the main part of our job. We don't do that anymore. So these days we do talks online, user groups. Yeah, that's what keeps us busy.
Yeah, I was about to say, someone in chat said it's still 480p, which I don't know what I can do about that, because I have set it to be 720p and it's still 480. Hopefully it doesn't make the stream any worse. Like, you'll still be able to hear and answer all the questions, or well, ask the questions and hear the answers. But I heard from someone that
I can go closer.
I heard the problem might be COVID related, because apparently so many people are using YouTube streaming services that they've like limited the quality for some people. So
really,
I've heard that. I mean, okay, just because you hear it online doesn't mean it's true, but yeah, I don't know. I've got the bitrate set high enough, I've got the resolution set, but it still outputs to that. So that is something I need to find for next stream. But those of you who have seen the stream before are probably, surprised by all the positions. I'm not on the top anymore, I'm on the left, and we've got a nice background, so it looks a little bit more professional. And this is a Q&A live stream, so feel free in chat to start asking your questions now, and we'll be sure to get around to those. We have some familiar faces in the chat. I see Andre from Mix and Jam and Elena from Unity. Is there anyone else in here? What's everyone saying? Well, everyone's saying the volume's good, but obviously the picture quality might not be perfect. 1 sec. I'm just going to say, check out the stream with Ciro. Let's post it. One more place. Okay. Are any questions coming in yet? Because we've had a few different people so far. We've had indie devs. We've had people who do educational content. We've had Alan, who is a lecturer who obviously does educational content online too. And now we have someone who works at Unity. So I'm imagining there's quite a few people who probably have questions about that stuff. So it's just a case of waiting for some questions. Or if people don't know who you are, do you want to mention a bit about your current main focus, what you've been doing recently?
Yeah, for sure. So as I was saying, we obviously had to switch pretty much what we do in terms of what our team was doing. Before, we used to travel a lot. We were basically on the road like every couple of weeks. We used to do like one trip every 2 weeks, maybe 3-4 days. It was a bit insane. It was very tiring, but super fun as well. And these days, as I said, like we switched to online almost completely. I mean, completely. And and so we do a few things. We have, for example, we have an initiative which we contribute to, which is called Unite Now. Have you ever seen it?
I've seen
Nathan?
It pop up a few times.
Yeah.
Though I have to admit, I haven't followed the links yet, but that's, I can do that at some point.
It's kind of like an ongoing online conference, if you want. That's why it's called Unite now. And me and my team, we produced a few videos for that. So, for example, I made a video on profiling, a video on GI, a video on animation rigging, and one on timeline. So I try to like move across different topics, and that's what we all do actually. My team, we're very, how do you say, multitasking, multi-area, if you want.
Yeah.
And then we do many meetups and user groups. So we connect, we jump into different meetups. We recently did Austria. We did Lagos in Nigeria. We have a few. Don't ask me to go by memory because my mind right now. And then we have other initiatives, and you might know one of them, which we launched recently, which is called Open Projects.
There is a link in the stream chat about that now, and there's
Nice.
also a lot of questions about it. So now we've got plenty of things to talk about. Do you want to finish the thing you were saying, or?
Yeah. I was just saying. So this initiative, we launched it like a couple of weeks ago, and it's basically a whole initiative of us making a game. I mean Unity. Together with the community. So it's an open source game that we're working on together. And we have so many parts to it. We have the game itself, of course, lives on GitHub. We have the discussion going on the forums. And then we have some live streams that we also do. And we did the first one just yesterday. And so we have this kind of like ongoing process where we work on the game, we keep people updated through the live streams. And the discussion goes on in the forum like every day. Today I was a bit less active, but since tomorrow we're gonna resume the conversation.
Yeah.
And people are super excited about it. Like there's so much activity in the forums. Yeah. People jumping on each and every task that we're a bit struggling to get, behind every submission and evaluating it.
Yeah.
And integrating it.
I feel like the main thing about it was that you hear about open source software a lot in other areas, but until like you mentioned it, I'd not even considered that. I'd never heard of an open source game before or anything like that. Now,
to be fair,
yeah,
I haven't either.
Yeah.
We actually studied a couple of initiatives. We were looking at one from Amplitude Studios, from a French studio called Amplitude. I don't know if you know them. They made Endless Space, and they're now working on a game called Humankind.
That doesn't ring a bell, but
they have an initiative called OpenDev. But I think Amplitude Studios one is a bit more geared towards gamers. So OpenDev in their case is a bit more like a tester activity. People test the game and give their feedback in terms of game design. Us, being Unity, of course, we want people to be more on the game development side, so they have access to the code, to the graphics. To be honest, I think the reason why we don't see it very much is because it's very challenging.
Yeah, to manage it, I can imagine.
It's not even just managing; it's like also managing the expectations, right? Like, when you open a project like this, and we really try to open it since the beginning, then now you have so many aspects that are open for people to modify, including the story, for example, and that's challenging because then when you modify the story, that can block other areas and keep many other people stuck, and those people are also eager to participate, and they also want to create a 3D model or a music, but you're like, wait, we're working on the story. We're still programming like the fundamentals. We're still looking at creating like the right art style, and then everything else is stuck. And so I think that's one of the most challenging aspects, even more than the practical technical challenge of approving the code or something.
Yeah, I remember like when I did when I was helping with the original contributions to see what is it like as someone out of Unity actually contributing. And it was very kind of clean and easy because there was like 2 issues, 1 pull request, nothing on the forums. It was just blank. And then now, whenever I look back to it, I'm like, okay, there's already like 4 or 5 pages on the forums or whatever. and then the issues, there's multiple pages, there's like 50 or like pull requests. It's already, well, that's a good thing. There's a lot of interest, but also like, yeah, with the management for it. And there's also, yeah, some people have to kind of understand that just because you did something or have an idea doesn't mean it's guaranteed to be added, because there's obviously conflicts with what you want and there's conflicts with what everyone else contributing wants. Somehow
that's
it has
the
to
unfortunate
all...
that's the unfortunate aspect of the project being so open. Of course, multiple people will work on the same thing, and then we will have to decide which one is the best one. But I mean, that's the key of open source, right? Like, I mean, you make a contribution to an open source project, not necessarily they will take that contribution in, right?
Yeah, you kind of sign up for that when you have a go. You kind of have to prove yourself in a way. Like with bug fixes,
and
I
also,
guess. Yeah, go on.
No, you were saying?
Yeah, with bug fixes, you know, if it fixes the bug, for the most part, it fixes the bug. But when you're adding a new feature, like how to just control the character, that's such a huge thing that then other systems rely on. You can't just do it how you like it, or, you know, take some code you've made in your own project and just shove it into this. I've seen quite a few people just taking things they've used before and shoving it in. That sometimes doesn't work. Maybe sometimes.
That's not necessarily bad. I mean, yeah, you're right. I don't wanna bash on that, because every contribution is great. But you're correct in saying that, it has to make sense for this project, right? And I want to say, you know, it's also challenging because there's bug fixes, but they're always good, right? If they fix a bug, there's fundamental structural changes. They could be very challenging to pull in. And then there's also additions. Like, imagine that we have now the system for the quests in place, and people make a new quest. And maybe that quest is actually great, but it breaks the story, or it doesn't fit with another quest, right? So in itself, it might be a great contribution, and it might still not make it into the game because it has to be coherent with the rest. And, you know, you made some games. It actually, the best thing in terms of game design is taking away, is not adding, right? Like adding always usually breaks the game at some point.
And you've also you've also got to accept that when you add some code, it's not necessarily going to be saved there and preserved forever. Modifications happen on top of it. I already know like a little bit of the stuff I added, like one line got changed a bit, and it's like, oh, cool, you know. It was something about like the rotation threshold or something. I don't know. But yeah, you've just got to accept, you know, you add a bit on top of this pile, but then other people add on top, and maybe their bit, you know, overwrites yours, but it's just how it is, you know. Especially as development goes on, the goals change a lot. So it's like right now we need to make this movement, and we've made the movement and we're very happy right now, but maybe in a month down the line it needs to change a bit, and it's just how it is.
Could be you know, maybe we will need to have physics, right? And then we will throw away all the character controller and start fresh. It's not gonna happen, but anything could happen in other aspects. So that's totally possible, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, if you work on a project, you usually throw away your own code, right?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah.
And you should actually, you know, that's a very good aspect, very good point to make, that when you prototype and then you start the project, you should technically throw away all you did for the prototype and start fresh. And not necessarily every person does. I for one didn't do it when I was making my commercial projects. So. But you should, right? Because that gives you much more solid basis to start from.
Yeah, you don't want to force yourself to use the stuff you've already written just for the sake of it, because it'll end up coming to, you know, bite you back later. Mm-hmm. Should we have a look? I think we've got a few questions now. The chat's kind of active. So one question is from Mix and Jam. So Andre asked, how do you think the open projects could integrate into people's portfolios? I can see a lot of skill development, especially in the teamwork aspect, because I have, you know, obviously heard plenty of people say, even if, you know, you're only going to do this little contribution, even just going through the flow of maybe you've never used source control before, and you've never done merging branches and pull requests and all this stuff, that if you do go work in the industry, it's very valuable skills. And you can work on your own projects and have your own Git set up, and you're working with yourself. But as soon as you go into a project that's open like this, you learn a whole new bunch of skills. And yeah.
Definitely, yeah. There's so many layers to it. Like, one is the project itself, so the code you actually write, the 3D models you actually make. But part of it is also, this contribution with the others, the whole flow with Git, the whole flow of making a pull request and sometimes modifying it, because pull requests can be like enhanced before being approved. So you can keep committing to that pull request, and there's so many aspects. And one thing that I actually want to promote at some point is the idea of not making a pull request straight away, but linking your own branch to show off something, right? So before you actually try to commit something, you can link your own, not your own branch, sorry, your own fork, because people can see that. So there's so many. And actually, I've learned some things myself, by doing this, the whole pull request flow. And what was it? There was something that I was like, okay, that's how it works. Interesting.
The content license agreement thing with the auto flow, maybe?
That's one thing. Yes, the linting that one of our colleagues, Miley, she added to the repo that we have now. It's like an auto, how do I call it? Auto code checker that happens after you commit.
The linter.
It's it's like it's kind of like a bot that pulls your code, checks it, and then commits again the revised code. That's quite interesting.
Isn't that for keeping spacing and stuff consistent?
Tabs and everything. So that one also, I learned that like I can make commits on people's PRs. So if somebody makes a PR, I can pull the code locally, make a change, and commit to their branch, to their fork, before we merge into the base repository. So that was also interesting. So I'm learning too. But to answer Andre's question, because he specifically mentioned portfolio, right? Yeah. I think there's two ways to put it into your portfolio. One way is to put the actual project. So let's say that you make a contribution and we pull a PR in, and there's some code or some asset inside the project. That's one way. And of course, you can always, go around and say, like, look at this thing, this particular aspect, I made it. There's also another interesting aspect, I think, which is maybe you take the project, you bring it into your own repository, into your own fork, and you do something else, which we wouldn't necessarily accept, but for you, it's portfolio. So for instance, to give you an example, it could be somebody was mentioning, I think yesterday on the stream or on Discord, what about machine learning? Like, would we put machine learning into the project? And I'm like,
probably not.
No. Because it's a tough one. But machine learning has the whole like training aspect, and then now everybody should have to. Well, I mean, we could provide a model, but it's not something that everybody knows how to use. But you can totally take the project and put it like locally, and make your own fork and put machine learning into it. And if you're a machine learning kind of like expert, and that's your portfolio, that's fine, and that also is something to be proud of and something that you can show. And you can say, like, I use this project as a base and I enhanced it with machine learning powered AI. So I think that's a very interesting aspect that we're not talking about too much. It's a bit early to use the project as a playground for other things.
Yeah, but also because for people to do that, they don't really need like to wait for you to do approvals and stuff. It's like, let me just take what you already have, and I can reuse these assets, and I can use my skill, which is machine learning. I'm not a modeler, I'm not a whatever else, but I've got this base, as you said, to work with, and that can be.
I mean, of course,
useful.
you could use any Unity tutorial to do that, right? Like they're all free to use, so you can do that. With this one, you actually have even more freedom, because it's an Apache 2 license, so it's kind of like the project belongs to you as much as it belongs to me, right? So you can totally take it and modify it in any way possible.
Yeah.
Potentially even sell it, which I don't know why you would do it, but yeah.
it's the problem. Then you get all these rip-off games that all use the exact same assets and models. You're like, I recognize that from the other game, and yeah. I mean, people can do it if they want. It's up to them, I guess. Got a few other questions. I know this may be off topic, but do you know when Oculus is going to release new OVR plugins, plugin updates? I don't know much about VR stuff. I've played with it a little bit, but I don't have enough space in my room to do VR, really. It's not viable for me. And I don't know how involved you are with the VR stuff.
Not really, no. And
isn't that
these things
more of a third-party thing, is it? These plugins? Or
I'm not 100% sure. We have what we call a plugin system for since I think 2018.4, and then each vendor kind of like releases their plugin for our plugin system. So yeah, it's basically on them, and that's why I don't really know. Like that would be on Oculus and Facebook to create the new plugin.
Yeah,
I think, but I'm not too sure, so don't quote me on that.
Maybe their help and support is the best place to ask. I'm not sure, but
the forums. I think the forums is a good place to go for this kind of thing. And somebody from the team, or maybe one of our my colleagues from the US. He's more expert on VR. He might know, but it might just be like we don't know. Like it's up to Facebook to release it when they want.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when will Nintendo update their SDK? Is I don't
know. Someone said a question on open projects. Are you guys now reworking the story of the game? Well, was there really a story in the first place, or was it very short?
It was very vague.
Very vague. Yeah.
But we did rework it. Yes. Somebody made some remarks that. I mean, it was never my intention, but they made some remarks that the story had some colonialist overtones. So we were like, okay, let's change it, and we changed it, and it's quite different now. I mean, there's some similarities, like the protagonist hasn't changed. He's always like this chef obsessed with cuisine, and he's traveling, and he gets to this island, but he interacts with the locals in a different way. We have new locations as well as a result, which has challenged us, and we need to rework a little bit we have like a map, like a logical map of the game and locations, and we had to rework that. So we're doing that right now. And of course, it doesn't make sense to rework them every day. So I just wanted to kind of like finalize the story first.
Cool. I didn't look much into the story when I was like helping. I was just like, I need the easiest contributions possible. Oh, look, some bugs. And it was the main thing was that when I looked at that like original bug, I was like, I've had this problem myself. So then I was like, oh, that's convenient. I like fixed this the other day, and it was just like a little tiny chunk of stuff. But yeah, it does feel good. I'm sure other people can agree with me if they've done this too. It does feel good to contribute and then have it accepted and just see it working. Because now, like, even though one of the simple things I did was just add character smooth rotation, whenever I see the project and the character rotates, and I'm like, that was me.
And actually, that was I want to say that was one of my it was a mistake of mine, because I have a gamepad here, and one of my first thoughts was like, I want this game to be a gamepad kind of game, right? Not many people have a gamepad connected to their computer.
I have one in my cupboard, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like you use it when you play, and if you're a regular player, you have it on your desk, but not many people do. And so you want the keyboard controls to be as good, because this is not a console.
Yeah.
So that was a good bug fix. Was a good enhancement to the game to actually bring the keyboard controls on par with the gamepad controls.
Yeah, because at first I was thinking like, how come it worked? Oh, you're saying it works, and I'm testing. I'm like, it doesn't work. And you were like, wait, you're not using a gamepad? And I was like, oh yeah, of course, keyboards don't have like analog controller sticks, so that's why it snapped. But
we would have made it, but like it was good that you contributed to it.
I thought I'll quickly take it as content for the video before you guys fix it yourself. Because I wasn't gonna be able to contribute any assets or anything, so I thought, quick, find one of the code things that I could do.
But I think in time, many things will be unlocked to contribute to, which right now you don't even see, you don't even think about. Like dialogues, right? That's a classic. Like anyone can go in and change a few lines of dialogue. And that could be a very easy way to make a small contribution, or maybe a dialogue that is like super short, or a character that just says like a hello, and you can like create a conversation for just that one character and put it in. So there's things that right now we really don't have, but we will have a lot of kind of like slots where you can plug yourself in time.
Yeah, it sounds a lot more viable to have many small contributions than fewer big ones, just because with a
Totally.
yeah, it's like if someone gives a big contribution, you might want half of it, 3/4 of it, but it's just so much stuff that it's like, can we just chop that bit out and have the rest?
Yeah, and I don't think I can accept only a few files. Like the way I would have to do it is like pull the code and remove those files and then commit again and then accept the PR. But it's like, what if they don't want me to just take a few files? So then I have to comment and say like, hey, can you remove these files? And then the person has to do it, and then I accept the PR. So it's a long process.
That's why it's good with like codecs to have lots of really small cards, just so it's like, I can do this little thing, and because you only do that little thing, it's not like you've done more than you were meant to, and that's going to be awkward. It's like, no, I fixed this bug, or I added this little bit of dialogue. I didn't say I would do this bit of dialogue and added 20 conversations.
Yeah, it's just a bit challenging because right now the things that have to be done are actually pretty big, very fundamental.
Yeah.
As we start building this layer, we can have like smaller bricks on top, which will become like smaller tasks.
Especially once you've got those underlying systems, and then it's a lot more about content and design, because obviously, I mean, systems are going to be developed the entire time, but right now, you can't have dialogue without having NPCs that you can walk up to and interact with and lead up to the dialogue in the first place. So, yeah. Let's have a look at some more questions. So,
somebody's asking when did you start at GameDev?
That was the next one I was just going to read. Yep. That's for
both
of us, I guess. Yeah.
Pretty late in 2020 terms. I was, let me think. I think I made the first like proto games in Flash when I was like 23, 22 or something like that. So at the time I was studying like graphic design and many things like video editing, these things more related to the graphics aspect. And I was studying Flash as well, and web design as well. And then through Flash, I started making games, and I started making my first games in ActionScript 2. And then I moved to ActionScript 3 and picked up Flash as like my main development tool. And only in 2012, so I was, what am I now? What year are we in? 2020.
Yep.
36. You do the math. 2012, I was, somebody help me.
I'm not
sure. Dapper looks like Butte.
Apparently, I've not heard. I've not heard that one before. Yeah, talking about all this like Flash and ActionScript, and I'm thinking like
28. I was 28 when I started using Unity. 28, so old? Wow.
Now, when you say it out loud, I'm thinking like
28, 27. I started using Unity for real, kind of like for real, because I tried it like back in the day, and it was funny actually when I was using Flash and we were considering using Unity for this game. I emailed Unity and I got a pro license, which was a trial. At the time, Unity only had like the Indie and the Pro, and we got the license and we let it expire. Never tried it. Then wanted to try it, and we were like, fuck, it's expired. So emailed Unity again, and a certain guy called David Helgason replied and went like, oh yeah, for sure, like take another month of trial. And I was like, okay, cool. And then we tried Unity, and I think it was kind of like early 3 version or 2 version. And I really gave it like a very, very short spin. This was like 2009. And I was like, yeah, this looks cool, but I don't understand anything here. And then we kind of like ditched it. And I saw it again 3 years later.
You're saying 2009. I'm thinking I was 8 years old. Like that's just no. Yeah.
How old are you now?
19.
Can I swear on your stream?
I didn't even hear what you said. Your mouth moved, and I heard nothing on the thing.
Yeah, it was very subtle.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I actually started pretty late in today's terms, right? Like, you started when?
What, Unity and like code? I started
Just
coding in Unity about the same time. Like, I started coding in Python at school, and I was like, I want to make games in this Pygame, but and then I tried Game Maker Studio for a little bit, and I was like, okay, but this can't do 3D games really, and it's a bit limiting. And so I was like, met with the Unity and Unreal Engine, and at the time I was just told, yeah, Unity's for indies and the Unreal's for companies. So I was like, okay, I'll go the Unity route, and that's what got me started. And that was, I was in sixth form, so I was about 16. It was about 4 years ago, probably 3 years ago.
You see, I started like almost like 10 years after you. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, 10 years before me. Oh, like in age, yeah.
In age.
Yeah,
I mean.
I was, yeah.
It's insane.
It's weird to think about. Quite a few more questions. Any lead on the new networking systems, and how about the dots networking? Which, as far as I'm aware, but I'm not really in on all this, is they're like the same. The new networking system works for both dots, ECS, and normal game object Unity.
No, that's not.
Is it not true?
Super
Are they
correct.
two separate things?
It's a bit complicated, and I don't remember what can I say or not.
Yeah, maybe it's safer just not to say much about it and just say,
I
wait
mean,
till a later date.
The reality is, if you're waiting for something new, completely new, and if you're waiting for the dots one, it's gonna take a while yet. But what you can use today, if you're interested in networking, I mean, Unity's networking actually works. Surprising to many, but it does work. It might not be the best, and for some use cases, you might need to build a little bit extra structures on top. There's a very good blog post that we had from Brandy House. She's I think she's a product manager on the multiplayer, on the networking. And she made this very good blog post that has like a comparison chart. And basically what that blog post is doing is saying, like, depending on the type of networking you need, you use these or these. And some of those products are third-party assets for sure. But that's the key point, is like you can't have a solution that caters to all uses. So it really depends on like, if you want to make like a game that requires like server authoritative gameplay, or if the gameplay is better like suited on one of the computer's machines, on one of the user's machines, then you want a different type of networking. And so I would really suggest to like check that blog post from Brandy House. It came out like a couple of months ago, and that gives like a picture of which solution is better to use.
I think I have seen that, or it might have been in a slide in a Unity video on YouTube somewhere. Like, I think I saw that grid of your use cases and which to use. I mean, like, I was interested in multiplayer probably like at the start of this year is when I was looking into it, and obviously I heard, Unet's deprecated, so there's currently no like official like Unity in the box solution right now. Obviously I heard people say, you can use the built-in Unet, but it's just a lot of people didn't recommend it, so I looked around a lot, and I've tried Photon, and at first I thought, loads of people say use Photon, so I started using Photon. Then I found like the way they do things, like you pay per user, they host it, but like you can't really do server authoritative stuff, and it was still good to get
Photon has another solution for server authoritative, right?
I think so.
Is it Bolt? Photon Bolt?
No, they
not
have
Bolt, the visual scripting, but
no, they have like a few different solutions, but then they also have a separate like actual server thing, and there's too many different like packages and things and how it all worked. And I thought, I kept looking around for more, and I did some tutorials on Photon, like a few people said like, have you ever thought about using Mirror? And I was thinking, I'll look into it. and it seemed really popular, and it's open source, and it's like, I don't know how much you've seen about Mirror, but it's one of the main things I've been doing content on in the last few months. It's also what... Oh, Discord seems to have lagged a bit. I need to keep... Oh, our faces are gone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
All right, well, apparently our faces are back. Okay. But yeah, there just aren't many multiplayer tutorials on YouTube. There are just not many. And I was looking around, I barely could find any. And I thought, well, I make tutorials, so, you know, I learned Mirror a bit, and I thought, well, it's free, it's open source, you do basically what you like with it, and it's pretty easy to get set up and just making some multiplayer games. And you can have server authoritative code, so it's pretty good. And there's all the stuff you need. It's because it's basically just built on top of UNet. It's got basically the same way you build it up, except it apparently has loads of bug fixes.
And actually, I think UNet... I don't want to say something wrong, but I think maybe we changed strategy as well. But like UNet is not really deprecated. Like it's not like we are gonna drop it right now, right? I think there was a deprecation plan. So the idea is that we will deprecate it in the future. But then the word on the street is that it's deprecated right now, and I'm not too sure, to be honest. I'm not a super expert on networking. But I really suggest to go and check that thing. And there's a lot of activity in the forum, and I know that the team is very responsive. So, for example, one thing that we did was to include the dots multiplayer in the blog post, and people criticized that because obviously it's a solution that's not built yet. But you should take it as the intentions, right? Like, so in the grid, what it says for the dots multiplayer is the place where we intend to be.
Yeah,
it's kind of like an estimate of kind of like usability and speed and ease of use and stuff like that.
Yeah, and since like there's no, well, at least the public doesn't know any estimated date for any of this stuff, and I don't want to like wait too long to start making multiplayer tutorials if people really want it. So, you know, I looked around the solutions, and I've never told people this is the best one out there, it's the only one you should use for every type of game, but I'm like, you can use this thing, it's free, you can just get it, and it works, and this is how to start building multiplayer games. And now they've actually become the most popular videos on my channel. Like, I had this old JavaScript Discord bot video from like 2 years ago, and that had my most views for a very long time. And the other day, a Mirror multiplayer video I made in like the last 2 months, that just overtook it already. So
it's a hot topic, and because we were kind of like silent for such a long time, that created the confusion that is out there, and that is also what created this gap, this void that you are filling with your video, basically. So we should get back to it, and maybe we should create some tutorials as well.
Yeah, because when I can use the new stuff, I'm definitely going to use that. It's just a case of like right now, you know, some people want to just start making multiplayer. They don't want to wait.
Oh, for sure. And that's why I'm saying like the solution is there right now. It's just you need to understand which one it is. And
and like you said, that blog post explains it.
Yeah, for some studios, like for example, the Fall Guys, right, which came out like just recently. For them, the best solution was to make something themselves. So they built something on top of UNet, I think. But they had to do quite a lot of work. But I mean, you understand that Fall Guys is like
heavy physics. Like
it's heavy physics online, and for how many? 60 players? 60 or
honestly,
80.
Too many games.
60.
I haven't played it yet. Like I've seen many people play it, but I haven't got.
No, I played it, but I forgot what was the exact number. And I know that they wanted to go for 100 in the beginning, and then they thought it wasn't feasible. I don't know if it was because, you know, maybe it's also like 100 is too much. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was maybe a design decision. But what I'm saying is that, each game requires a different treatment.
Yeah. The only problem is, like, as someone who makes tutorials, if there's like 5 different good frameworks, it's not really viable for me to like every week just switch frameworks and be like, how to start a server in this, how to start a server in that, how to spawn something in. So I kind of have to pick one for at least a good chunk of time so people are happy and I'm not jumping all over the place. I did jump from Photon to Mirror, but that's because I very quickly found out, like, at least in my opinion, and quite a few people that watched, like, Mirror is better. It's, again, hard to say better, Photon has its advantages that they do the hosting, so you don't have to worry about port forwarding or hosting your own dedicated servers. So for someone who's really looking at the basics of how to quickly make something multiplayer and jump in with their friends, it is a bit easier. But I've done
That's the thing. That's sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
If you make a server authoritative game, then you need a server. So then you have to pay for that.
Yeah.
Well, if you make a game that relies on like peer-to-peer, then you don't have any hosting costs. So that's also a decision that you have to take, right?
The good thing I found with Mirror is you can do like all of those. So like when you start the server, well, you can either start as a server, start as a client, or start as a host, which just runs both. And with that, you can effectively do peer-to-peer because you just start as a host and you give your friend your IP. And obviously, then it's a whole case of, well, giving people your IPs isn't ideal, but there are different ways of actually, like you can easily swap the like network relays. So I've shown people like how to integrate it with Steam. So you don't need to give people your IPs or port forward. You can just click join on Steam and you join their Mirror game and you're hosting it. So it's like a peer-to-peer effectively.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Not that you have to like contact your friend or something, but that the match is effectively just between you and your friend, right? And there's no server like sending data, which is a big cost for multiplayer games. And that's why that's why we actually have multiplayer. Don't know if you know about multiplayer.
I've like heard about it, and I thought it was like probably not something for me to mess with right now, or like I don't really know what
it is a bit for bigger scale companies,
yeah.
for sure. I think they handle like mid-sized indies, but not like small ones. But what I'm saying is, they do that. That's their. It's a whole company based on handling servers and making sure that they run smoothly. So that's a whole conversation that sometimes when you think of multiplayer games, you kind of like tend to forget.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people also want to just have something simple that they can get up and running. They can host it on their own machine. Doesn't cost anything extra. They just play against themselves or their friends. And it's just for the sake of learning, like a lot of the time, and just understanding how networking works and how RPCs and commands and
we need to make more tutorials. I think that's the message. But it's good that you're confirming it. I was already thinking about this just yesterday, and I think it's a good idea to start like putting out some more learning content in that sense.
Yeah, like it even tells me on the YouTube analytics, like, why have you got like a huge amount more views this month than last month? And it just says like, people have been searching all this stuff on your channel. Multiplayer. It's just all multiplayer stuff. It's such a hot topic, and yeah, no one else really is covering it. So I'm going to keep going. I am doing other content too. Like I did the video on open projects. I've done something on localization. I tried out the new UI builder, but I always make sure to tell people like, don't go and just use this in your game you want to release commercially yet. But I quite like, in my own time, messing with preview packages and just seeing what's coming. But I just make separate projects for that. I don't like try and get it into something I've been working on for a while. Yeah, I don't know. I just, because it's coming, the localization stuff's, it seems, I mean, I don't know what plans they have on adding to it right now, but it
Which
seems...
one? Sorry, the localization?
Localization, it feels pretty ready.
It is pretty...
Yeah. I'm not feeling like there's any missing features that I need or anything like that.
As far as I know, there's some stuff that they're adding which is delaying the 1.0 version, but it's extras. It's like kind of like additional possibilities and features to connect the package with like different ways, different tools that people are already using to work on localization. But the stuff now is the functionality you need. So, for example, there's the connection with Google Sheets already, and for that reason, we were thinking of using it in the open projects. Actually, it's going to be a bit of an exception because we said we're not going to use preview packages, but it's such a useful one, and it also makes a lot of sense to. Since we have a community that could be any language, then why not? why not localize the game?
Yep. We got a £5 donation or super chat.
Wow.
Dapper Dino, when is the multiplayer course coming out?
Do I get some of those £5? I'm joking.
We didn't agree on that before. No.
A cut.
Yeah, the GameDev TV course. So, like we were saying about the multiplayer stuff. That's actually what I'm using for the course, because they've done an Unreal Engine multiplayer course, and they've been wanting to do a Unity one for ages, and they've had so much, their community's pretty big, and everyone's been demanding Unity multiplayer, and they haven't had anyone to do it, and they didn't know what to do it with, and then the thing is, I was saying, there is no right way to do this thing, and whatever you choose, there'll be people telling you do it the other way, but you've got to accept that. And I thought, well, I can do Mirror, and I made a prototype project, and they were just yeah, that seems pretty good. And then I ended up doing the course, and we're 2 weeks away. Let me just check the calendar. Yeah, 2 weeks away from the release, so it's going up on their own website in 13 days, and then it's going up on Udemy, which is kind of the big release, because that's where the majority of it goes on, and that's in 15 days. So 2 weeks on Thursday is the big reveal, or not reveal. It's been revealed for ages. People know it's been coming, but yeah, I'm excited because it's the biggest thing I've worked on, and yep, I'm just looking forward to that being released. And I know for the channel, I've discussed this with other content creators, but it's really hard to do series type content on YouTube. Most people on YouTube do maybe a tutorial a week, or maybe 2 a week, and if you do a series, it's a lot of commitment, and you might get bored before the end. People watching might get bored, and I think a lot of people like YouTube for the spontaneous, different types of videos. You learn this week and this that week. But if you do a series, it's episode 26 on how to make an RPG, and it never ends. And yeah, everyone I've seen doing those kind of tutorials, that the series, they give up at some point. I've done it. I've stopped doing series content on the channel. So when I do multiplayer, I make them very isolated videos on how to spawn in objects over the network, how to do this kind of stuff, just so that people can take those separate videos and kind of use it. But for making a full game, because some people still like having content on it, I want to start from scratch and end up with a game. So that's kind of what they do on their courses. So we've made an RTS, so we have a multiplayer real-time strategy. So you have your bases, your buildings, and your units, and you can move them around, and you've got a mini-map, and you can multi-select and send them over there and attack, and it was pretty fun making it, and it all works, so hopefully people enjoy learning how to make that kind of thing. And just having the knowledge, I think, is cool, because then when new multiplayer solutions come out, the knowledge is quite transferable. They'll know about servers, clients, authority, and just how the whole flow works, at least for server authoritative kind of architecture, because that's what we're using. It's quite a lot of questions.
Super nice of Oliver to send the
yeah, I think we had one, I don't know, I added the donation link back in. I guess some people don't like asking questions in the chat when there's so many people, because they get lost in there, or we don't get them in time. So if people donate, it kind of means I'll immediately jump on your question. So thanks for the £5.
No, but I mean, it's as a support to your channel, I guess.
Oh yeah. Because
you're probably streaming a lot and doing a lot of videos, and I don't know how much. It's not a question you don't have to answer. I'm just wondering, if YouTube actually supports the creators in a way.
Well, I can say I had one video demonetized ever, and it was a tutorial about some FPS thing, and it had the word shooting or gun in the title, so it got demonetized, even though it was a little It was a little Unity thing shooting spheres, but the auto detection picked it up. And I appealed, and I don't know why I bothered, because again, YouTube doesn't pay much. It's not most people's primary source, but any bit of support is nice. Because Patreon too, some people like to help support. They usually do it without expecting anything in return, but it is nice to have the rewards on Patreon. People get the end.
Yeah, I really like Patreon. I think it's a really great formula for today's world, where people are making things and it's harder and harder to get money out of that creation. So I really like things like Patreon. Also the open structure. So I give money up front, and then the creator I want to support creates something which I didn't demand specifically, because you don't say like, I give you $5, make this, right? It's like, I give you $5, do your thing. I think that's really nice.
The give you $5 and do this doesn't work when you've got enough people that have, I want, like, if I look at some comments in videos, there's like 30 comments telling me to do different tutorials. And if I do maybe 1 or 2 a week, that'll take many weeks just to do those. And then in the next video, there's another 30 ideas. You can't make everyone happy. You've just got to try doing your best, I guess.
I think there's also a discussion. This is a bit of a big discussion about art and stuff, but I don't know if you want to open that Pandora's box. What I mean is, if you have a community that pays you to do things specifically, right? And they say like, do this, do that, then you don't have a voice. You don't have a way to say and to show what you can do. Especially as an artist, that can be tough. Then you become like a person that just does commissions. While I think it's really nice to have a community that supports, but then you get to kind of like create what you believe in, right? And they obviously give you feedback. Like, they will stop supporting if you do things that nobody appreciates. But I think it's nice that you people on Patreon have that like freedom also to experiment, right?
Yeah, they trust in what you do, and they don't donate expecting you to do something in particular.
Pick for example, I'm supporting what's his name, Mark Brown, right? Game Maker's Toolkit. Or even if you think about like Mix and Jam, you don't say like, make me a video about this.
No.
You let him like explore and think about what's most interesting.
Yeah, the quality
they will do.
The quality will probably be higher if you let them get on with what they do as well. Because when I
and I think sorry, keep going.
When I like come around to do a video, I sit down and I'm like, okay, what have I done recently? Do I want to, do a follow-up to something I said I would do? Or, should I try out, like, do a video on this new thing? Or should I show off what I've been working on in my own time? And pretty much regardless of what I do, people are fine with it, They just accept, this is the content he made and he taught something here or he showed something off here and either this helped me in my own project or it's just interesting to see. Like, if you have an audience, it's not like every single video, and I'm talking about tutorials, it's not like every single video will be valuable to every single person, but, even then, I've watched tutorials on things I know how to do, just to see if they do it differently and, like, maybe why, maybe it, gives me, like, I'm like, oh, like, I've made that kind of thing before, but the way they did it just makes so much more sense. And, I still like watching things that I already have made or know how to do.
There's also, I think, and that's why I was saying, like, I don't want to open the whole discussion, but there's also a conversation to have about like what the audience demands and what the creator creates. And when the audience is in charge, most of the time you end up getting like the same requests. Let me think of an example.
I've got a good example. When I used to do Discord bot videos, I did a few just because I wanted to be like, hey, I've learned how to make some Discord bots. Maybe you'd like to too. And I did some tutorials. Then when I kind of got to the end of like, I've done it. I think I've done enough on this. I want to move on. Then for the next many, many months, I'd get many questions like, where are the Discord bot tutorials? Make us Discord bot tutorials. We want more Discord bot tutorials. And it's like, you don't want to let them kind of take over the channel.
I mean, it's a fine request, right? Like if they want that, they want that. What I'm mostly talking about, like also artistic choices. Like if you, it's kind of like if you ask somebody, what do you want to see in the cinemas next month, right? Where they will answer quoting some existing movie, and then you get another movie exactly like that, right? They don't know what's potentially possible in the cinema space, and so you rely on a director to do their investigation and come up with something new and then present it. If everything was driven by the community, not the community, how do you call it, by the audience, I would say, then we will just like loop back on the same content over and over again. So that's why I think Patreon has a lot of potential in that sense. Like Kickstarter, for example, is a bit more self-perpetuating this loop, because you go on Kickstarter with an idea and you're asking money for that idea, and then people will finance that. And even though you might have like a very innovative idea, you will think like, well, that's the same thing, right? It's not really the same thing, because if you ask for money on Kickstarter with something that's really, really experimental, people will be like, I don't understand this, because they don't see it yet. Like, it's just a proposal. So it's really tough on Kickstarter, for example, to pitch games that have no connection with existing things, while Patreon gives you that freedom. And again, if you go too crazy, if you do things that really have no place to be or are bad quality, then people will stop donating. So I think it's a really good format.
It's also a good way, like you said, to kind of check whether your audience still likes what you do. And it's not like if they start to dislike it, you're then doing something wrong. Because as long as you're doing what you want to do, you can't say that's the wrong thing. But if people become Patreons because they like how you're doing things, and then they stop. Obviously, some people stop just because maybe they need the money, There's various other reasons. But if you notice like a huge drop-off, you've probably done something that has upset a load of people. And I think as you build your audience bigger, you tend to get like these chunks of your subscribers that are there for different reasons. Because when I started, I did some really bad Unity tutorials and showed off some stuff I made. Then over time, I moved on to a phase where I did like Disco bots and some website stuff with Unity mixed in too. Then I did some shader stuff. And then over time, I've done like different chunks. And I'm sure at those different times, I got people expecting different types of content. And now, I don't know, are the people that are watching me my most recent subscribers? Or do I still have like my older subscribers? Are they still watching? Like as time goes on and you change the stuff you're into. I mean, I don't know how well you can look into the analytics on that stuff, but what are people saying?
They're still talking about multiplayer.
Yeah, I'm gonna go look.
They don't care about Patreon and money.
Got some questions lined up. So where were we up to? We talked about multiplayer. Someone asked, how did you come up with the idea of open projects? I'm sure you've probably answered this question before, but not to this audience, I guess.
How did we come up with the idea? Actually, I came up with this idea in some form together with Matt Shell. Do you know Matt Shell?
I'm aware of Matt Shell, yeah.
You've seen him around. So Matt was an evangelist as well, lead evangelist for the online team. He was actually Andres' manager for a while. He recently left Unity and he now has a company called Thousand End. And they have actually a very good YouTube channel. I really suggest to check it out. Their videos are not really tutorials. They're more like explorative and discussions and kind of like video essays, if you want. Really, really nice and well produced. And with Matt, we met at some point last year, actually. It was before COVID and everything. And we were like, what's next? Like, what are we doing next? What would be cool to do? It would be cool to like develop something. Maybe we can like work on some project. And then Matt said, what if we open it to the community? And I was like, what do you mean? Like they can, I don't know, you share the project with them after the fact? And he was like, no, maybe they can contribute to it. And I was like, oof, that's sounds like a lot of work, but it's super cool. It's a cool idea. And so that kind of like stayed, for a while. We were like, how do we do this? Trying to figure out the formula. And actually we didn't get to do it. And until after Matt actually left Unity. Just this year we started like pitching it for real. And then because of the whole COVID situation, it was like, you know what? This is actually a very good formula now, because since we can't meet people in person, then at least we can meet them online. And when I say meet, I don't just mean, me giving a talk.
Yeah, like getting them involved.
That's boring. Getting them involved, yeah, and having this kind of like back and forth continuous, which it's really hard to have online. How do you do that? I mean, you have all the tools, but at the same time, for us, it's a bit challenging. So that's how we came up with the idea. and then it eventually became open projects. And actually, Matt is working with us on open projects on the art side, so he is involved somehow.
Yeah, that's the story of how it became. I remember seeing your tweet where you'd retweeted or you'd like included your old tweet when you were coming up with the idea, and you said like, I'm gonna pitch this idea, and then now you were like, yeah.
I actually made a tweet somewhere in March saying like, what should we do next? Once we can travel and stuff, and people gave like all sorts of answers, but there was actually a pattern in some people saying like, oh, you should make a game, and then somebody said like, you could make a community game. I was like, yeah, you're on the right path. You see, that's a very good example, actually. Like what I was saying before. I asked people, what do you want us to do? And people gave like the most diverse answers, right? And if we were to go with the majority of the answers, then I don't know, we would have made more tutorials on shader graph, right? Nobody would have expected, I mean, one person asked for it, but like nobody would have expected about this initiative. So that's what I meant, and it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not like the users are, the requests are stupid in some way. It's just like you work with the information you have, and what we've been doing until now is just tutorials and, like videos and live streams and stuff. We haven't done this project yet. So how can you ask for something that Unity hasn't never done, right? You would have to just take a wild guess. So that's an example of what I was saying before with the whole Patreon discussion.
Yeah, I mean, the things that the community majority vote for are the kind of things that are the safer options, that you'd be totally fine doing them, but nothing exciting would come of it, I guess. Like you said, if you did more shader things, I'm sure people would be happy, but you wouldn't have the chance of doing the open projects, which...
And we're doing it, right? We also have that. We also have videos on shader graph going out all the time. Actually, in the live stream yesterday for open project I did, I talked about shader graph, so that's funny.
I've got like, when shader graph first came out, I thought, oh, this is easy, and I made a few really simple shaders, and like, this is how you do it. And then I realized, well, this is where my skill in shaders ends. I was doing too much other stuff, and then I got people saying, can you make a shader that does this? Can you make a shader that does that? And I just said, I'm sorry, it's not my area of expertise.
What about multiplayer?
Not back then. No, that was ages ago.
No.
I thought multiplayer was like too extreme to even like consider at that point. And then when I tried to do it, and I was like, oh, it's a lot easier than I thought it'd be, just because the frameworks are very high level, like they're very simple to get going with.
Totally.
I guess we should try to get.
Hello, Liam from the chat. He says
questions.
It feels wholesome in a cute dev kind of way.
It's probably because of the new background wallpaper than what we used to have, like the bright green banner. Yeah, the stream does look a lot more comfy, I think, than it did. This was one about open projects, but it was how do you choose between two or more similar pull requests? I don't think you can really answer that question directly. It's quite hard.
No, I mean, I would. You choose by...
You look at each of them, I guess.
Yeah, by choosing the one that makes more sense. As I said before, it's a variety of factors. It's obviously the code quality. It's also like, and that's actually something that's challenging me these days. The code doesn't end there, the life of the code doesn't end there. It's not like we pull in some functionality and that's it for that aspect. People will have to look at that code. So also the code, not only the quality, but the clarity is important. And everything goes into that, right? Like the syntax, the choice of names for the variables. If somebody creates a PR that has like very cryptic names, that also goes into the evaluation. So there's so many aspects, and obviously the coherence with what we're trying to do, if the PR does the thing or not. But that's the easy one to evaluate, right? You can say like this PR does this much and this PR does this much, and this looks more closer to what the task was. You approve it. But then like the code quality can actually affect that judgment, because as I said, like the code life doesn't end there. So I will need to have a look at that code. Other people will have to have a look at that code and modify it.
And
Sorry.
Yeah.
And so that's another aspect.
I think to add to that, just because you have 3 pull requests ready doesn't mean you have to pick one. You shouldn't.
Yeah. It could be that we pick none, to be fair.
Maybe you need
the contributions are pretty good so far. So I think actually I was surprised. I thought I would have to make much more development. And I think the majority of this project is going to be much more like community management and reviewing contributions, because there's so many good quality ones. There's so many important ones. It's not just like small tasks. People are actually making entire systems. And so we just have to pick the best.
Yeah, and I saw like quite a few people that I know, like in the tutorial community that you'll know too, did videos on the open projects. Like even not like even tutorials, just talking about it to get their own communities to know about it, and that spread the awareness quite a bit. I mean, obviously there was the channel, the video you released on the official Unity channel, but then I remember seeing like Code Monkey made one, and Turbo Makes Games, and
there was what's the name? Games from Scratch.
Games from Scratch made one too. Yeah,
he made the video at the very, very beginning.
Yeah, and I never asked for it, but a few of them gave me the shout out for this for the tutorial video on how to contribute. I've not really checked back on that much. I should probably check the comments, because I imagine some people have questions. I know they have on the forums asked questions. I checked back on that thread earlier, the how to contribute on the forums, and I remember there were people asking about, should I use GitHub Desktop? Should I use this? Should I use that? And like, I think you responded saying, use what you like. I mean,
yeah, because somebody was saying that GitHub Desktop doesn't work on Linux. So I said, like, yeah, you can use Git Kraken, for example, which apparently works, and use what you want. But you made it with GitHub Desktop because we thought that it was like the best.
Yeah.
We thought it was the best, easiest solution. What I was gonna say, I remember.
I don't know. I mean, the question was just about choosing pull requests over other pull requests. Should we move on, or have you got any more to say about that?
No. That was it. That was it.
What do we have next? Do you need port forwarding to use Mirror if you don't have a dedicated server? Well, as far as I'm aware, if you have a dedicated server, you'd still need to port forward, but not from your own home router. But even then, like I said, if you don't want to deal with port forwarding and sending IPs to people, which isn't like the most recommended thing to do, people are usually fine sending their own IPs to their friends and stuff. You know, I've hosted plenty of Minecraft servers in the past, and it's whatever. But if you want to make something a bit bigger, then yeah, the reason I haven't done a tutorial on how to like use X place to host your server, like I don't know, Azure or like Amazon Web Service or whatever, is because I've never actually done it. I've never gone to the level of hosting for a commercial game. So like maybe at some point I'll look into it, but it's yet again, if I choose to do, let's say, Amazon Web Service, and people will be like, well, I haven't used Azure, or I haven't used this other system. And that is the curse of doing tutorials, is that you show something one way and then you get 10 questions about doing it a different way. And yeah, but I think that also ties in with the open projects. You said it's a kind of a way of showing intermediate to advanced tutorials, because it's kind of hard to do those, because you know there's many beginner tutorials and they're very isolated. How to use this feature, how to use that feature. It's like, okay, but I want to make a game and bring it all together. And I think, like you've done, one of the best ways to do that is get your hands on at a full game that's fully open source and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other way to make an advanced tutorial than to actually make advanced content, right? And what does advanced content mean? I mean, it means more complex. And what does complex mean? It means probably that it's like more of a full game, right? So it's that was the way to kind of like dive into that next tier of tutorials, but we didn't want to just make it a tutorial.
Oh.
You got another.
We've got another, yeah, and this one's aimed at you.
This goes to me then. This is £5 for me.
We can talk about that after stream. So yeah, what is it like working at Unity? I was waiting for someone to ask something about that because, you know, like I said, each person we've had
enough with open projects.
Yeah, enough with open projects. What's it like about Unity itself?
What's it like to work at Unity? So it's I think it's a good company. It's obviously growing a lot. It has grown a lot in the past years. I was gonna say 2 years, but it's been growing. Like I joined in 2016 when I think it was around 2,000 people at the time, and now it's more than 3,000 or something. Anyway, it's grown a lot. But I think one cool thing that I like about Unity is that I think everybody has a voice. Like internally, we say things that you will be like, you will look at the stuff that people say and be like, oh shit, like that guy or that girl said that, like to the and there's this back and forth between like all levels, like from the CEO to like the last person who joined. Sometimes you're looking at somebody who said something and you're like, who's this person? I've never seen them, but they still will voice their opinion and somebody will reply to their opinion. It's like this interesting like back and forth. I'm talking about Slack. We have this on Slack, and especially we have like a big channel having like everybody in, which is called Unity All. And when stuff happens in Unity All, right, like it becomes like a big discussion. It's like super fun to watch.
An inside part of working there. Is it entertaining or something?
It's super entertaining.
Okay.
I have so many screenshots of Unity All. People saying things, weird things, like especially when somebody posts by mistake. Like probably they open like Slack and they type thinking that they're typing into a conversation, and they post on Unity All. Super fun, and then they receive like a lot of
right in Slack. You can delete messages.
You can, but sometimes like,
they forget.
With 3,000 people, by the time you delete, you have like 100 comments. And Miley wrote 346, but it's 347. What are you doing? So 347 is a meme. Is a meme at Unity. Do you know the meme?
Nope, but I'm guessing.
So it's a super fun thing that happened like 3 years ago now, I think. So this person, a woman from the US, she just wrote 347. I'm at the bottom of Sunday in Unity, and that was it. and then everybody was like, what does it mean? Like, what is 347? What is bottom of Sunday? Why Sunday? And everybody was like speculating and
maybe they knew like how funny the chat was and they wanted to get you all confused.
No, I think I don't know because I wasn't there before, but I think it was kind of like the first meme of this kind, and then 347 became a thing, and now we have like emojis about 347. People make t-shirts.
Really?
It was kind of like not Unity itself, but people independently make like t-shirts. They were like, okay, who wants the t-shirt? This is the design, and everybody ordered their own t-shirt, and they have like the t-shirt says 347 bottom of Sunday. So it became like a big meme, super fun for a while. And now every time you post in Unity All by mistake or something weird that people don't understand, they add like the 347 emoji.
Well, that's the more you know. I now am aware of this.
And Miley's specifying that by doing that, she went like at here. So she notified the whole company with 347. I'm at the bottom of Sunday. It was a super fun moment. And I think she got like something like the replies, the emojis, they capped. Like I think you can add up to 50 emojis, so they were added like super fun.
You have like a meme Twitter, don't you? I've noticed like
me
Ciro out of context or something. I've scrolled down there before because it was just so funny. Because I think it was when I went to follow you, I was like Ciro, and then there was also a second one that had quite a few followers, and I was like, is this him too? And then I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah, it was a joke account that my team made a while ago, and now many people who are managing it, because I'm not managing it, they left Unity, so it's a bit dormant. And also not being face to face all the time, then the quotes for that account are not that frequent anymore.
It's kind of died down sadly.
Yeah, it's a shame. What else is it like working at Unity? Let me think. Interesting stuff. So yeah, this very kind of like flat structure still present. Of course, the company is growing, but it's still there. And again, it's super nice because it really makes you feel like you have a voice to say things of all kinds, like from tech to kind of like more, how do you say, ethical questions, ethical topics. People voice their opinion, and it's not always easy to make changes that fast, but they're generally taken into consideration. The other thing that I want to say that maybe it's surprising to many is like some people say that Unity doesn't listen to feedback, right?
That's every company. Everyone says like.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But I see a lot of this comment like, "Oh, Unity never listens to like the audience and stuff." We listen all the time. It's just it's not super easy to act on every piece of feedback. And again, if we were to listen to every single piece of feedback, then Unity will actually be a real mess. But there is a lot of conversation, and you're in the Unity Slack, but you don't see that channel. There's a channel called product feedback, and we literally take like individual tweets and we bring them in. And there's always a discussion around things. It's like, okay, why is this user saying this? Trying to understand what they're actually saying, because sometimes the feedback can be misleading. Maybe they're saying something, but they actually mean something else. So there's a lot of discussion that goes around feedback. It's not really true that we don't listen. It's just that sometimes Unity is a big machine.
Yeah.
Not only the company but the engine itself, and it's really hard to make changes. You need to be really, really careful. And one of the biggest issues, I would say, of making changes is that we need to deal with all the projects that are out there. So you don't just make a change and roll it out, but you need to think about what's the impact for the users. Case in point, that the operator equals is overloaded in Unity, right? So you write equals, and it's not just the equals that you would have in pure C#, but it does something different. And that can be confusing sometimes. And it's easy for people to say, like, why don't you just change it? Why don't you just undo this thing that you did like 15 years ago? And it's like, okay, what if it breaks like 2,000 projects, right? Suddenly, and 2,000 teams will be confused by some bug that appears now. Maybe they ship an update. Maybe they don't notice the bug and they ship an update to their game, fixing something else. And now they have a game running on people's consoles that doesn't work. It's like, it's not easy. So.
Yeah, people have to understand with anything that when you give feedback and suggestions, just because it's not added the next day or at all, doesn't mean they're not listening. Because
that's what I wanted to say. Yeah, exactly.
When you get a community as big as Unity, or even just as big as my channel, you get people with conflicting suggestions. So it's now like picking sides. You can't make everyone happy. It's
and we don't pick sides. Like, it's just we try to understand what's best for the biggest majority, which is including many users, but not everyone, unfortunately. So some people will be disappointed, but that's the reality. And we try to make a very, very modular engine to try and support even those people that have like some very specific requests. And unfortunately, that requires some modification to the engine. But that's the unfortunate truth.
Yeah, but as I saw in like the recent videos that went up on the Unity channel, like the showcases of the applications of Unity and what it can do in different fields and stuff. Like, it, as you said, it's a huge engine. It can do a whole lot of things, and just by changing one little thing somewhere, you said 2,000, but I would imagine a little change even like that would break many more than 2,000 projects. I mean,
maybe, yeah. I was trying to guesstimate,
oh
right?
yeah,
And so many projects will not be updated anymore, or
yeah,
they're
that's
on a
true.
version that is like, they won't upgrade version. But imagine like imagine that we roll this change out in like 2020.2, and 2000 teams at that point are deciding to switch to 2020.2, and they think they run a series of tests and everything seems to be okay because they weren't testing against this new change, and then they ship the game or update their game, or make a version, go to a game event, show it to a publisher, and it doesn't work. It's like, now you really produced some problem. But anyway,
Yeah,
we try to do that all the time. We figure out ways to roll changes without breaking people's projects, hopefully. And that's the whole what you were saying. The variety of use cases is the whole the whole reason for packages, right? We couldn't cater to each and every use of Unity with just one engine, so we made the engine modular. And I understand that like packages don't come with uh, no problems. Like we had a few problems with package manager, but we're solving them slowly, one by one. And I think it's a pretty decent system now.
yeah. I think when I started using it, I mean, this could have been completely my fault, but there were times when I'd import one package, it would work fine. Then I import another package, and just everything would break, and my console would be full of errors, and it would be constantly logging errors. And I thought maybe a restart would fix it, and no. And then because of those errors, I can't like change any of my scripts or save because like you can't enter play because you must fix the errors. And all I'd done is just import some packages, and the only way to fix was by removing them. But I haven't had that problem in like over a year probably. And yeah, again, could have been me, but
No. It's
I
I would say when the package manager came out, there were a lot of issues that are not there anymore.
Yeah, I think from what I saw, it might have been like problems with dependencies and stuff because
it is usually dependencies, yes.
Yeah, that would be the main problem because it was just loads of version numbers and saying using this HDRP or whatever URP, then like this version of this is, and I don't know, it's just I couldn't figure it out. And then now it just works fine for the last, I'd say, a year or so since I've been using it.
We have a more solid system in place, I think. Considering the dependencies and considering also like the testing that we do on packages, they have a much more structured way of doing it. I don't know the details, but QA and the release, we have a team called Release Management, has a much more solid approach to how we release packages. There was a moment when, because there were packages, teams could like release very, very fast, and it seemed cool at first. Like people will be like, oh, packages, now I get fixes in like a matter of days versus like weeks. But the reality is that can break projects much, much more than when you do things in a structured way. So we kind of like close the key again, and it's like, okay, now stop.
Bit too fast.
Don't upgrade packages and just push them on the server. And that produced a bit more alignment, because the reality is like teams need to align. Like the team that makes, for example, the URP needs to speak with the team that makes the technology under URP, which is like the SRP, right? And it sounds like the same people, but it's not exactly the same people. And so if somebody from this SRP kind of like rendering team releases an update, or maybe there's an update even like lower, like a new version of Unity has something that changes the way Unity does rendering, then the SRP team needs to release a new package that fixes that. And maybe you broke URP, so URP team needs to also release a package that fixes that. And then shader graph is a dependency for that, right? And the VFX graph. So they're all connected, and it's a very, very tough situation. And in the beginning, we didn't have a very solid structure in place, but I think now we do. So it's improving every day.
Yeah, great to hear. And there's still plenty more questions. Any idea on when we're going to get a stable dots package or production ready? You've been asked this too many times. The sigh.
No, it's just it's a very hard question. Because we thought that we would have it before, and we kind of like stopped to rethink some things. So no, I don't have an answer to that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay.
The only thing I would say, I don't know where the question comes from, if they want to use dots in production or if they are asking because they want to learn dots. And I will
there wasn't any
wait
more
1 second and see if what was the name of the user?
Who was it? So it was like EMEA Bugday. I don't know. It's got an accent on one of the letters, and I'm English, so I'm really bad at. I can pronounce your name, but that's about it.
Yeah, the Turkish name, right? Emre.
Yeah.
I saw it before. Yeah. Yeah. So let's see if he replies again. And basically, my question is whether they want to use it in a production, in a game that they're making, or they just want to understand when it's good to start learning it. And I'll go ahead and reply to both.
Yeah, we can continue and then go from there, I guess.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I'm gonna kind of like answer both cases. What I'm saying is, it wouldn't make. I mean, it will be a tough decision to start producing something with the dots package right now, even though some studios are actually doing it. But if that's the question, I would say, like, hold on for a little while. But if you want to just learn about it, then I think it's good to start taking a look at it. And because I don't know, are you familiar with dots?
When it was first like ready for the public to get their hands on it, I did do a few tutorials on it and tried to wrap my head around how it works, and I did a few things, and everyone's done all the wow, look how many things we can support at once with huge FPS. But then when you start thinking about, all right, how do I build gameplay mechanics? I think that's where most people got lost. And because there just isn't any official tutorials on it, or the documentation is changing and everything's just changing too soon, I kind of like stopped doing tutorials, but I want to do them again, probably when it's more stable. Because it was something I was really interested in. I like the just the way of thinking of structuring, like how it works. And I know quite a few people, like how I got kind of a boost when I did some multiplayer stuff. I got like a smaller boost with dots. But like I enjoyed it, and a lot of other people did too. So it is something I want to revisit again. Just maybe not right at this moment. It's probably not the best time, I would imagine, to revisit it. But
I think you can do it. It's just you have to position it in the right way. Like, not, hey, here's a tutorial on, you learn from me, and then you get and you go and you start making a game. But more like, let's talk about data-oriented design, and because that was my point in reply to Emre, or I don't know if he even is still connected.
Maybe not.
The point was, there's a lot of learning that goes into. There's a lot of effort that goes into understanding data-oriented design, and it takes a while, and it's actually way better to do it in the long term than do it in a compressed space. So if you go to imagine that the package is ready to use, and now you're like, okay, now I want to learn dots. It's going to be tough to understand it in like the space of 1 month. But if you see it today and you understand some stuff, and in maybe 1 year the package is ready, even if the APIs will have changed, you already know how to deal with data-oriented design, and then you would be advantaged. And then when you see it again and you see the APIs, you will instantly get what they're about. So I think there's a point in taking a look today, even if the APIs will change. But that was my question, whether the goal is to make a game or to just learn it.
Yeah, like I'll look at that in a second. The notification sounds very loud. The thing I want to end with that was, it's like with the multiplayer stuff, because if you know how it all works, then when there's like a new solution ready, it's a lot easier to get into it. And like you said with dots, if you can understand the theory behind it now, and even if, like you said, the API will probably change quite a bit between now and release, it's still, you'll just understand it right away. And it's like, if you know how to use one game engine, you pick up a new one, you get it a lot quicker. It's the same with anything. Programming languages too. You know, I learnt C# to a decent level, and then since then, when I've used other languages, it's been, you know, pretty easy, like for the most part, because it's a case of you're not thinking, you know, what are these features I don't know yet? You already know what, you know, casting and inheritance and all these like terms are. It's just a case of how do I do it in that language? And once you know how dots works, it's then a case of, okay, now how do I change the data on a particular component? Well, you just look it up and see how it works. You already know, like,
it's just a matter of finding the right API. And, you know, there might be surprises. Maybe dots in a year would be doing things differently. Like, for example, let me think. For example, right now, structural changes are pretty much a no-go. Like you don't want to change the structure of the data often. And we're trying to solve that issue. And maybe in a year we will have solved it. So the way you will do things will be slightly different, but you will know what structural change means. So you see it and you're immediately like, okay, now it's a thing. Sure, I'll do it, right? And then you add it to your arsenal of tools. Hadi Lepanda is going. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
All right. So.
And Miley as well. Bye.
Some people leaving, and we are at the 1.5 hour mark. So we'll probably not only be going for another maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes. We'll see. It's usually, you know, people start tuning out at this point. It's getting kind of late. So Oliver asked another question, which was, what type of games will we be making in the course? Well, for now, it's only one game. Usually when they release courses, they have a kind of theme or like the topic of the course, which in this case is Unity multiplayer, and then they'll build a project. So we've made an RTS, so like StarCraft, or, you know, that's kind of what it's more similar to. And it's not, we're not replicating, we're not making a copy. It doesn't work the exact same way, but it has the fundamentals of an RTS. So bases, buildings, units, selection, attacking, moving, all the various things you expect. It has all that stuff. And then I think usually what they do is, if the course is successful enough and has enough interest, then they add more content to it. But that doesn't mean you have to like buy a DLC or, you know, get a new course. It's the same course you already have, just with more stuff. And they've done that before for their like Unity 3D course, Unity 2D. They've done some RPG. I can't remember like all the stuff, but yeah, the multiplayer course for now will just be an RTS, but you should be able to take the knowledge from that to apply it to whatever kind of game you want to make. I think, like you said, with multiplayer networking solutions, there isn't one solution for everything, but at the same time, you know, if you're just learning, you can still learn in whatever. And I think someone asked if you could have that link to the blog post or something.
To the multiplayer blog post, yeah, let me find it actually.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good thing to send to the people in the chat. That'd be quite useful. But yeah, thanks for the $5 again. Someone's very keen at getting their questions answered. That reminds me, there's also a queue of other questions. Let me go and look over here. So, where were we last time? We asked how you came up with open projects. Someone asked, what are the prerequisites for getting into multiplayer games? Like making multiplayer games. I mean, I guess the prerequisite is to have made single player games, because you shouldn't dive into multiplayer, because the way I see it is it's kind of like a layer on top of single player games, because you still are trying to make the same mechanics, whether that's movement or attacking, whatever, but now you also need to think of the extra step of, you know, do I run this on the server? Do I run it on the client? How do I make sure people don't cheat? It's data and commands being sent forth and backward. So some people might come into game dev with the idea of making multiplayer games, but I would advise them probably not to start off with multiplayer. It's a bit complex for beginners. But as soon as you've, you know, made a couple like of your own prototypes of single player games, I mean, I've like not released a commercial game, though I have released games for like Ludum Dare. Whoops. Yeah, the notification alert always gets me. And yeah, Discord's being funny again with the webcams. Let's sort that out. But yeah, I've made games for game jams, and like I've put those up online. But like, as you know, obviously I only like started Unity a few years ago, and then I had school, and then now I'm like done with that kind of stuff. But then I've been busy doing all this other stuff. So, you know, I do have plans someday of actually releasing a commercial game. It'd be, you know, something I definitely want to do. But yeah, as someone who's teaching people to get into multiplayer, I'd advise, you know, stay away from it for now. Don't dive straight into it, because you might be put off it if you find it too difficult as a beginner.
That's a good point. I mean, there's so many beginner game developers who kind of like abandon because they start with too much of a big project, go on for a while, and then they get burned, right? So take it easy and start with something simple. And multiplayer is definitely not one of them, unless you're doing it for fun. If you're doing it for like just experimentation, then you can.
Yeah.
But keep in mind that also multiplayer games are super hard to test. Like, how do you test a multiplayer game? You definitely need like more than one person, right? So you don't do them on your own.
Well, when I've done it, I've just tested against myself. I usually
you can create bots and.
Well, I usually just run a build and I hit play in the editor. And the benefit to being like the host in the editor is you get all like server logs and debugging and stuff, and then you can have like an external client as your player too. You don't get the full testing, I understand, of how does it really play with someone in a different location with lag and all that stuff. But you can still simulate that. I've tried a program called Clumsy before, which can fake ping and packet loss and stuff. And, you know, you can do so much on your own, but you can't get the full development experience on your own. That's the problem.
Yeah, of course. Especially if the game is fast-paced.
Yeah.
Then how do you even test it?
I mean, I'd argue it's kind of even the same in single-player games, because if you are in your own bubble making the single-player game without having anyone else play it or test it, then, you know, you might go down the wrong track. You might... Well, first of all, I had this bug once where, like, I'd made player health bars and I hadn't thought about it too much, and I'd, instead of using, like, an image with the fill, I'd use a slider and just change the slider value. And then someone tested my thing and was like, I can just click on the health bars and drag the health down. And I didn't even consider that. And I was like, oh yeah. I'd even like removed or hidden the little handle so it just wasn't there, but they could still click and drag and move it. And yeah, of course, they couldn't kill the people that way because that was just UI, but it was still pretty dumb. And that's something I'd never have tested without getting other people to test it. So
that's one rogue way to do a health bar.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, because I just thought like, oh, it's a bar, and it's an easy way to fill it up and reduce it. And then eventually I was like, oh, you can set images to be filled as well. Ah, that's easier. And then even then, there's like people do shaders for that stuff, which isn't my area. But I don't know. I do want to get into shaders at some point, but it's like I want to do dots, and I want to do multiplayer, and I want to do shaders. That's like I don't want to get to the point where I just burn out and don't do anything.
Yeah, you should. I mean, it's good to do a bit of everything, but yeah, definitely, you also want to focus, I guess,
on something. Otherwise, you never.
Especially for your channel, right? Like then people know what to find.
Yeah, people know, at least at the moment, I'm mainly doing multiplayer, so kind of intermediate stuff. Anytime I've done beginner stuff, my fans say like, hey, we've already had enough beginner content from all these other people. Do more. Stop doing beginner content. And I think that's slightly different to what we said about Patreon and letting them do what they want to do, because I've never actually really wanted to do beginner content. I just thought maybe it'd be good to have some, but people like, no, we're here at your channel because you do intermediate stuff, and there's not much of that. So I do actually like to continue. I just worry if I do only intermediate, people will turn up and say, where do I start for this thing if I'm a beginner? You know, go somewhere else. But
you send them to Brackies.
Yeah. That is where I started learning stuff, and then I was like, yeah, but how do I implement this in a full game? And then now we've got open projects. So
poor Brackies. Where is Brackies?
I don't know. I don't know any more than you do. What's going on in the chat? Zyga's here, who we streamed with last week. Hello. Hope the stream is going well. It is, and we are kind of coming to an end. Not right this minute or anything. We've got plenty more questions to get through, but we won't be going on forever. How many questions we've got? So, already answered this. Okay, so Printy interested in trying to make a small working RPG concept in multiplayer. Do you recommend using Mirror? Did you actually get that link for the different types of the things?
Yeah, I posted in the chat.
Okay, did that go through?
I don't know.
Because I don't know if
I'll post it again.
Maybe I just missed it. I think YouTube.
I'll send it to you.
If you're not a moderator, it might just remove it when you post links. Yeah.
It's funny that the shadows removes it. It doesn't even tell me.
Yeah. If I just go to YouTube and jump over here and paste it, that should be fine. I didn't check the link, but I'll assume it's a safe link. And
I
then
hope so. Yeah, it is.
And then what was it? Yeah, so that will explain a bit about different use cases of, what solutions to use for different projects. But even then, that's not like saying, if this list says it's not saying you've got to use this to make an RPG. I mean, I'll answer, yes, you can make an RPG in Mira. That was actually one of their projects that they've already made to showcase it, is that it can support a lot of people, and they've actually got an RPG kind of project to showcase it with NPCs, quests, combat, and stuff, just to prove, this is something it can do if that's what you're looking for. And like you say, you're not trying to make an MMO, the thing every solo developer wants to make, this huge MMO. As long as, like you say, it's just a role-playing game and it's relatively small, I mean, go ahead, you can use Mira, but, have a look at the other ones too. I'm a bit biased because I use Mira and I'm making a course using Mira, but, there are other things too.
I think my camera just froze.
I was about to say, I was like, you're really staying still there. and then you started speaking and your mouth didn't open. But
I had the bright idea of closing the camera setting program, and then that turned off the camera. That's so fun. Interesting.
Yeah.
I had the settings open and I decided to close it.
Don't know if you're the person to ask for this, but when does the progressive GPU light mapper come out of preview? That's a very...
Yeah, I saw that question. No, I don't know.
No,
I don't know.
It's such a big company, just asking.
The thing is, but the thing is, with the progressive light mapper, have you used it? Is it broken? No, I mean for the person asking, because the question is, the progressive light mapper is one of those features which is not, it doesn't ship in the build, right? So it's not something that can break at any time. If it works and if you can bake, then why not use it? Like, I've been using it quite a lot, and actually I use it on open projects as well. It's just there. If it works, just use it. If it doesn't work, switch back to the CPU one, which is obviously much slower. So if the GPU one works, then why not?
So is it just about baking the light maps faster, basically?
Yeah, well, it has a few differences, and but I think functionality wise, yeah, that's pretty much pretty similar.
I'm guessing if I've never touched it and I've baked light maps, it's just by default use the CPU.
I think it uses the CPU by default, yes, because it's out of preview while the GPU is considered in preview.
Is it a package or is it?
No, it's part of the editor functionality.
Oh, I'll have to look into that. I don't do too much baking of light maps, but I've never considered the fact that it bakes on the CPU by default.
Yeah, it's because it's the more solid one, I guess.
Yeah, and
the thing with the GPU and CPU is sometimes one issue that you can have with the GPU one is that it runs out of memory, because it has to send things to the GPU to then elaborate the final light map, and it depends on how much memory you have on your GPU. So sometimes for big scenes, the GPU might run out of memory. When it does, it switches back to the CPU and it goes like, yeah, I can't do this. So CPU, but it will do it automatically. So you will probably get a notification in the console when that happens.
What's usually used as a database for multiplayer games? I wouldn't say there is a usually.
I don't know.
I mean, if you're on about storing user data, this was the same person I think who asked about the small RPG thing. So you might want to store which users have what items in their inventory and stuff like that. I mean, you can use anything really. That's the thing. I'm sure there's probably recommendations on what to use, and I'm not too
sure, but I think the key there is looking for services that do that. So there's so many services that have remote storage, and I think there's more to it than just storing a value on a database. So I think it's better if you look into some service that does that for you. It's gonna come with like integrated like security and
Yeah.
anti-cheat, and all these things which are important for that kind of thing. And so many services, they come with like a free plan anyway, so
Yeah.
it's not like you have to invest in money upfront.
If you're doing a small little test with just a few of your friends and seeing if it all works and
Yeah,
proving that you can do it and learning, then yeah, a lot of these
they
services,
all have a free plan, right?
yeah, for like either a limited amount of time or amount of storage, speed, usage. But you don't worry about the storage speed and stuff like that if you're just testing and learning. It doesn't matter, so it is quite nice. I think we're almost up to date with the questions, maybe. Am I correct in my assumption that for a 3D first-person shooter game, having server authoritative movement is bad because it'll make the movement feel like less responsive? Well, obviously different games will do it differently. If you do want to avoid cheating, you can't have client-side movement. That's when you get people teleporting around the maps because, you're trusting the clients in saying where they are. And that also means that if one player's lagging, everyone else will see that player lagging. But you tend to notice in games with dedicated servers, if one player's lagging on their end, you don't really see them lagging. Sure, you'll you won't see them move, but on their end they might be glitching around, but you won't see that because to do that kind of thing, they use what's called like lag compensation, which is you let the clients move themselves on their own machine, and then you tell the server how you want it to move, and then it keeps checking whether you're kind of behaving yourself. Because you want it to feel responsive. You don't want to hit W to move forwards and then tell the server you want to move forwards and the server to move you and sync it back. That just doesn't feel good for that kind of, for like an FPS where you need precise movement. But at the same time, you can't just trust them completely on where they are because then you'll get many, many cheaters. And yeah, there's not just an easy way for me to say, this is how you do lag compensation. And it, I've seen like, I think a GDC talk by an Overwatch developer talking about them dealing with lag compensation, and it's a big deal that AAA companies are still working on getting it like perfect, and it varies per game. So I don't know if you've got any insights on that, but it's
no, not really.
yeah, they said like, I'm not going to assume everyone here knows Overwatch, but character called Winston, and he's a big monkey who can jump, and there's a character called Mei who can freeze people, and they say like, what if on your screen you're playing Winston and you jump, but on Mei's screen she just froze you before you jumped, but you're already midair and she's frozen you, so what happens? There's a delay between you doing these things and the server receiving it, so they have like bounce back. So let's say the server decides, the Mei did freeze you before you jumped, but on your screen you've already started jumping midair, it will then like kind of rewind you back to where you were. And because if you actually had to wait for the server every time you jumped for you to then jump, you just feel quite a delay every single time you do move, and it just wouldn't feel good, especially in a competitive FPS. It's very important, in like Valorant, CSGO, and all these kind of games where you need like pinpoint accuracy. It's really important to get that stuff right. For the RTS I'm making, I've not worried because it's just select units, you click, and then they move on an av mesh. They don't need that really instant feedback for moving. It usually feels quick enough anyway, but yeah, I guess people are talking about it in chat. Yeah, you can't trust them completely. That's why you'd have server-side checks on how the player's moving to prevent, like you said, teleporting and fly hacking and stuff like that. Yeah, because if you just say, have it be fully responsive and let the clients move themselves and we'll just trust where they are, then they could easily just get a hacked client that just like ignores gravity or something, and then they just be flying around the map, and the server's like, yeah, that's cool, that's fine, I trust clients, which is why you never trust clients in multiplayer games or websites or any software development. You never trust the client.
I wanted to ask because SMH is actually replying to the GPU like mapper question. So I wanted to ask, what do you mean by the quality of the light map? Yeah. What do you mean by decrease and increase the quality of the light map? And that's that's a question, because he says that it does, GPU light mapper does throw the error that I was mentioning, and then he switches back to CPU. But that's I think if I understood it correctly, there's no big solution, because if the light mapper needs some memory to do some calculations and the scene is too big, then if you don't have that memory, it can't operate. So we're trying to make it like not faster, but like use less memory. And to that extent, I will suggest using, the very latest version of Unity, because we're obviously fixing it all the time. But yeah, he replied, SMH replied, I mean the resolution bounces. Yeah, so if the resolution of the light map is too high, or the raycasts that you're doing are too many, which I think is called samples, indirect samples, then if it needs that memory, it needs that memory. So if your GPU doesn't have it, it will revert to CPU one. What you could do somehow is to make small tests, like smaller tests in a more confined environment, and use the GPU one to bake. So imagine like you have a big scenery. You kind of like take one part of the scenery and you bake just that, and you check the colors, you check like the tones, and if it looks good, and use the GPU one for that, because then your GPU has enough memory to bake that small scene. And once you have your settings, you kind of like go back to the original scene, and you launch like a super long bake with the CPU one, which might take you, like the whole night, but at least you know that it finishes, because there's no risk of running out of memory. But you already have the settings, so you can just like replicate the same settings, and it should come out pretty similar.
Yeah,
that could be one solution.
Yeah, the graphical stuff isn't really my strong point. I am most of the time just messing with like gameplay systems, not thinking about the lighting and the shadows and all that stuff. But I have looked into it a little bit, and my knowledge on it is just the sense that like obviously we have limitations in real-time shadows and lighting and all this stuff. So wherever static stuff is, you want to bake it. The trade-off of memory for performance is worth it if you're doing this kind of stuff. And obviously there's all like new technology on all this stuff and whatever, but yeah. I've like in the smallest scenes like baked, and it took about a minute, and I've heard nightmares of hours of baking and stuff. And on like the top computer, my GPU is like, I got it like 4 years ago. It's a 970, and it's still going strong, and I'm using it until it dies. As someone who makes content regularly, I should probably have like a backup ready to go in case it dies on me. But I did that with my headset, because my last headset died this last week, but I had a spare one ready for this stream and recording and stuff. Got to be prepared. Yeah, I feel like it's nearly 2 hours, and the questions are dying down. So I feel like everyone's pretty much got in what they wanted to ask. Yeah, I think we could call it there. It's 2 hours. I'm looking at the chat, the most recent messages. I don't think anyone's asking anything. I mean, someone asked about Unity's new multiplayer stuff and all that, but assuming you joined the stream recently, we talked about that way back at the start. So when the stream's done, you'll be able to, after some amount of time, go back and watch the VOD. I don't think it's available instantly. I can't remember, but
I think it is. Okay. It was yesterday.
Okay.
You mean the replay of the?
Yeah, the replay of the stream. Yeah, they should be able to go back near the start somewhere where we talked about the new multiplayer systems, and just talked about multiplayer a lot of this stream. But yeah, I think we talked about everything. So let's do an outro of just saying thanks to everyone for watching. And there's Ciro's kind of bio, and I think you put a link or some links there, whatever you wanted to show off. Your Twitter, I mean, if you go on my Twitter, I've tweeted like tagged you in it anyways. If you want to go check out Ciro's stuff, you'll be able to find it after doing like 2 clicks or something. So yep. It is rewind time for the person who wants to go back and watch the multiplayer stuff that we talked about. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. It's been a pretty long stream, but that's good. It means there's a lot of questions. And yeah, it's late now. It's 9 for me and it's 10 for Ciro. So we'll go to end the stream now. So
I have dinner.
You have dinner now. I made sure to have it before stream. I wasn't waiting till this time. Yeah. Okay. Well.
All right.
Thanks everyone for watching. And
thanks for joining.
I'll see you next week with the next guest. So
yeah. Bye, Nathan.
See you there. Thanks.